In the middle of a large field, a young man called Ethan observes the landscape around him, while remembering all the suffering he has been through after the start of a zombie apocalypse. Having no more reason to continue, he decides to put an end to everything. A few days earlier, Ethan and his girlfriend Emma were traveling quietly at night, and when she noticed that her partner was very sleepy, the woman offered to drive. However, the young man says he doesn't need to rest, but at that moment, he is struck by another vehicle and the couple end up in a serious accident. In the morning, Ethan wakes up scared, and after getting out of his car, which is completely wrecked, he realizes that his girlfriend has drawn a picture on his plaster. The young man also realizes that Emma is missing, making him increasingly desperate and running aimlessly to find her. In doing so, Ethan realizes that all the people are missing, and the whole place seems to have been devastated. Even so, he continues to look for his girlfriend, and after a few minutes of walking, he arrives at an abandoned building. Desperate, Ethan walks through the corridors of the place in search of Emma, but just then, he notices a large truck approaching through the streets. Trying to call for help, he runs towards the vehicle, but realizing that he is alone, the survivor decides to shoot at his target, who runs for cover. In the midst of the gunfire, the man ends up being spotted by another enemy, who manages to hit him along with the driver. Soon after, Ethan comes across a mysterious woman who, after knocking out one of his enemies, begins to investigate the truck. The young man then asks what's going on, since all he can remember is his accident with his girlfriend. Despite his questions, the woman decides to ignore him and asks him to help her with the survivor's body. So the young man tries to carry the man's body, but at that moment he starts to feel weak and ends up losing consciousness. A few hours later, Ethan realizes that he has been put in the back of the truck, and while resting, he ends up having a nightmare about Emma, causing him to wake up suddenly. Looking around, he realizes that he doesn't know where he is and starts walking around the house looking for his girlfriend. When he arrives in the kitchen, Ethan is reunited with May, the same woman who rescued him. After introducing himself, the young man reveals that he suffers from amnesia, which is why he can't properly remember what has happened. Trying to calm him down, May says that she has left some new clothes for her new friend to wear, and asks him to go and get them while she prepares lunch. Soon after, the woman asks what Ethan can remember, and he says that he was heading to his country house so that he could protect himself and Emma from the zombie apocalypse. During the conversation, the young man finds May's information wall and discovers that the entire planet has been devastated by the zombie virus. Just then, the power goes out in the room and the woman asks Ethan to stay there while she tries to restore the power. Despite this, the survivor ignores May's orders and follows her outside, where he finds a zombie skeleton trapped in huge amounts of cobwebs. When asked about the creature, the woman says there's nothing to worry about, because that's Myrtle, her husband. She explains that all the young man needs to do is stay away from him, as the monster is there to protect her. Realizing that May is unable to fix her generator, Ethan offers to help her, and in a few seconds, he restores power to the farm. The woman checks one of her traps and is happy to see that she has managed to eliminate a large animal, as she will have a great dinner that night. Over the course of the night, the survivors feed and entertain themselves in various ways, but Ethan becomes increasingly worried about Emma's whereabouts and tries to convince May to let him go. However, the woman tries to ignore all the young man's requests and forces him to keep her company for several hours. After resting, May gets ready for bed and says that she will help Ethan look for Emma the next day, as they would be risking too much if they left during the night. Despite this, the young man doesn't want to waste another second, and after equipping himself with a crowbar, he heads for the truck and leaves the farm before the woman notices he's missing. During the trip, Ethan falls asleep, causing him to have several lapses in his memories, but he can't understand any of it. A few hours later, the survivor arrives in the area of his country house and rushes there to look for Emma. Using his crowbar, the young man manages to unlock the door, and after entering the house, he comes across a young man and a woman, who orders him to drop his weapon immediately. Trying not to be eliminated by the stranger, Ethan obeys her orders and reveals that he doesn't want to create any confrontation, as he's only looking for his girlfriend. Just then, the woman hears a zombie approaching and runs towards the door to stop the monster from invading. Before they could close up the house, the macabre creature appeared in front of them and tried to attack the survivor. Quickly, Ethan forces his body against the door, causing the zombie to remove its fingers from his hands. Despite this, the creature doesn't give up, and after breaking through the barricades, he manages to grab the woman, who begins to be attacked. Realizing that the weapon isn't working, Ethan uses his crowbar to eliminate the zombie and save the survivor's life. Minutes later, the woman tells him that she has run out of ammunition for a long time, and after putting the young man to sleep, she reveals that her name is Jolene. Noticing that the zombie is still standing, the young man wonders why it is still alive, and the woman explains that the plants control the creatures, so that not even shots in critical areas can finish them off. After introducing himself, Ethan explains that he is looking for his girlfriend, and that they had promised to meet at the cottage if they were separated during the apocalypse. Upon hearing this, Jolene says that she has been living in that place for weeks, and has not come across any other survivors since then. During the conversation, Ethan tells her that he can remember the entire outbreak that took place in his town during the apocalypse, when the inhabitants started a huge demonstration. When he discovered that the zombie virus was of plant origin, he wasn't surprised, as he believed that the planet could be taking revenge for all the harm caused by human beings. For this reason, all the monsters that were contaminated by the virus turned into creatures full of zombie plants that grew on the surface of their bodies. Realizing that they would be in great danger if they remained in urban areas, the couple decided to leave so that they could live in an area far from the cities. During his explanation, Ethan ends up falling asleep, and Jolene tells him that he can sleep peacefully as she will be taking care of the house throughout the night. In the morning, the survivor wakes up scared, and when he looks around, he realizes that the place has been invaded. Soon after, Ethan meets Jolene, who has already been eliminated by the invading zombies and has some plants growing out of her ear. Even wounded, the young man only remembers random moments of the attack, and so that he won't be attacked by the woman, who will soon transform, he decides to go outside. While walking around the site, Ethan comes across the body of Jolene's son, who is being devoured by a terrifying zombie, and as he witnesses the scene, he begins to feel sick. At that moment, the young man realizes that the monster seems to have gone away, and approaches to check if the young man is still alive. However, the survivor ends up being surprised by the zombie, who tries to demonstrate that she still has a certain level of consciousness. Before Ethan can react to the grab, he is met by May, who uses her gun to shoot the monstrous woman, causing her to fall a few meters to the ground. Soon afterwards, the survivor shoots Jolene's son in the body and explains that there is no real way to finish off those creatures, so they are just buying time to escape. With that, May asks her companion to wait for her return, and walks to the cabin so she can shoot Jolene's body. During his wait, Ethan comes across the birdhouse built by Emma, and noticing that the object has the same symbol as his girlfriend's tattoo, he decides to investigate inside. In doing so, the young man finds her cell phone wrapped in plastic, and when he turns it on, he sees a video recorded by her. In the recording, Emma says that her boyfriend's amnesia is getting worse and worse, and she doesn't know how long she can stand living with him like this. Just as Ethan was about to listen to the woman's explanations about her whereabouts, his cell phone ran out of battery and May said they could charge it at her house. The pair then use a bicycle abandoned on the road to make the return journey, as the truck has run out of fuel because it was left running all night. After a few hours, the pair get tired, and as they walk towards the farm, Ethan asks why May has such a big scar on her face. Realizing that the woman didn't appreciate his questioning, the young man apologizes, and they continue their journey as normal. During the trip, Ethan comes across the same gas station he had visited with Emma, and begins to have another memory lapse. The young man remembers that he managed to save his girlfriend from a surprise attack by a zombie, but after reuniting, he ended up being grabbed by the monster. Back in the present, the survivor wakes up, and May reveals that the young man suddenly lost consciousness, causing her to have to protect him while he slept. So the woman goes back to her house with Ethan, but when she gets there, she finds some scratches on her door and decides to find out who might have broken in. May quickly walks to her vegetable garden, where she bumps into Tom, who is startled by her arrival. He explains that he was just looking for food while searching for his wife, and because he believed the place was abandoned, he decided to check out the plantation. After making sure that the trespasser is unarmed, May says that the man will be able to earn some food if he gains her trust, and orders him to help Ethan with the farm work. The woman then begins to prepare dinner, while the pair of survivors chop wood outside. Realizing that May isn't watching him at the moment, Tom runs over to one of the wrecked vehicles, saying he'll relieve himself, but what he actually does is take one of his guns back. Soon after, the woman calls them in, saying that dinner is ready. Taking advantage of Tom's distraction, May orders Ethan not to eat the food and tells him she can cook something else for him later. After eating large quantities of food, the man rests at the dinner table, and during the conversation, he decides to show a photograph of Franny, his missing wife. Listening to the survivors' accounts, Ethan begins to have triggers for his lapses with Emma, and breaks one of the glasses on the table. Realizing that something is going on, May tries to take the young man to the sofa, but he ends up falling on the floor, and taking advantage of the woman's distraction, Tom decides to hold her at gunpoint. Soon afterwards, the man manages to disarm the survivor, but at that moment, he starts to feel strange and discovers that there is something in the food. Before she is eliminated by Tom, May uses her radio to strike the man in the head, who is instantly knocked out. The woman then runs up to the second floor so that she can find some medicine for Ethan. What she didn't realize was that 2 other invaders had arrived at her home, and before the young man could warn her, she went downstairs and ended up being captured by them. Quickly, one of the invaders ties May's hands to a chair and starts interrogating her. The invaders go by the aliases Wolf and Fox and are part of Tom's group of survivors, who are starting to get up amidst the chaos. As the effect of his sedative has worn off, he orders his teammates to leave Ethan alone, as he is just another victim who has been tricked by the woman. Soon after, the man says that he will investigate the entire residence alongside Ethan and find evidence that Franny and Emma have been there at some point. Meanwhile, Wolf, one of the other invaders, asks what May keeps in her barn, and noticing the woman's concern, he decides to set off to search the place. After searching one of the rooms on the second floor, Ethan comes across Emma's necklace and is devastated to realize that his girlfriend was once in that house. Tom also finds a backpack full of other people's documents and starts interrogating May, asking how many people she has eliminated. At that moment, Fox realizes that one of the objects is none other than Franny's rosary, and when he comes across his wife's belonging, the man is completely shaken. In the barn, Wolf walks around the place carefully and uses an axe to try to destroy the chains on one of the doors, without even realizing that the place is surrounded by wire traps. Furious at May's lies, Ethan picks up one of the guns and points it in the woman's direction, asking about his girlfriend's whereabouts. The survivor reveals that Emma had been eliminated a long time ago, and upon hearing this, he becomes increasingly desperate. When he discovers that the young man has amnesia, Tom is even more disgusted with May and tries to help Ethan remember his accident. Soon after, the man orders Fox to go and check on Wolf, who has found a laboratory hidden inside the barn. Worried about what might have happened as a result of the woman's manipulations, Ethan asks if she has made him ill, but May replies that she hasn't, and says that the young man is no longer alive. After approaching the body on the stretcher, Wolf realizes that it is actually Hunter, another member of his group, and runs to alert his friends. However, desperation ends up distracting the survivor, who triggers one of the traps and causes a huge explosion in the barn. Thanks to this, Fox ends up being hit by debris from the explosive, eliminating him instantly and allowing Myrtle to devour him. At the cottage, Ethan begins to remember the moments when he lost consciousness and realizes that it was he who attacked Jolene, biting her arm like a real zombie. Realizing that his friends have been hit by May's traps, Tom becomes enraged and decides to shoot the woman. However, the survivor's weapon had a false lock, causing the object to explode in the hand of her enemy, who was destroyed by the accident. At that moment, May throws herself to the ground, and after untying herself, she moves away from Tom, who is quickly attacked by Ethan, as his wounds have triggered the young man's extinct zombies. A few hours later, the woman takes care of her partner as normal, saying that he won't remember anything that happened that night, and they can go on with their lives as normal. The next day, Ethan wakes up next to May, and after making sure that the young man doesn't remember anything that happened, she decides to go ahead with her plan. Suddenly, the survivor is able to remember another piece of his past, where he arrived at a farm alongside Emma. As they approached the site, the couple came across Kai, who was chopping wood while being watched by his daughter Caroline. Emma says they are looking for food and shelter, and begs the farmer to let them stay in his house. After ensuring that neither of them is infected, the man invites the couple into his home so that they can eat the food that his wife Sarah is preparing. Back in the present, Ethan wakes up next to May, who is about to eliminate a deer for food, but when he looks at her plaster cast, he notices that Emma's drawing is in a different color. The survivor manages to deduce that he is being betrayed by the woman and points his revolver in her direction. Trying to calm him down, May explains what's going on, at which point Ethan remembers that he was attacked by the zombie that surprised Emma and ended up getting a bite on his arm. As time went by, the wound got worse and worse, and plants began to grow on the young man's arm. May explains that whenever an infected person feeds, they end up breaking the transformation process, causing their consciousness to return to control. Thanks to this, Ethan remembers the behavior of the zombie, who after attacking him, tried to beg Emma not to hit him with her gun. However, the woman decided to ignore him and shot at the monster, managing to rescue her boyfriend. In addition, Ethan remembers the rest of the events at Kai's house, where he began to have another of his collapses due to the symptoms of the virus. Realizing that her boyfriend is not well, Emma takes him to the second-floor bathroom and asks him to stay there while she tries to distract the farm family. When she returns to the table, the survivor is surprised by Kai, who points a gun at her and asks his wife and daughter to wait outside the house. Before they could leave, The woman began to hear noises coming from the bathroom and decided to make sure Ethan was all right. At the dinner table, Kai questions Emma about her boyfriend's situation, as he has noticed that he doesn't seem to be healthy, and doesn't even seem to know where he is. The man then asks how long the woman has been deceiving him, and she admits that she has no one else in her life, which is why she couldn't allow him to transform completely. After opening the bathroom door, Sarah and Caroline come across a partially transformed Ethan, and before they can react, they end up being attacked by him. Hearing his family's screams, Kai despairs, and seizing her chance, Emma attacks him with one of the kitchen knives, forcing him to drop his weapon instantly. Trying to protect himself, the man grabs his opponent's head and hits her on a piece of crockery on the counter. Right away, Kai throws Emma away, and before her enemy can grab her again, she grabs the gun and finishes him off with a single shot. At the same time, Ethan wakes up after devouring parts of Sarah and Caroline, and realizing what he has just done, he begins to cry in despair. As a result of Kai's attacks, Emma had part of her face bruised, causing her to develop the scar on her face. Back in the present, Ethan realizes that May and Emma have always been the same person, and for several years, she has always taken care of her partner. The problem is that thanks to the changes the virus caused in his body, the survivor never aged again, but his mind became increasingly confused. The woman reveals that since the day of the incident, she has developed numerous strategies to feed him, using the parts of the victims as food stocks. Emma also tells him that she redid Ethan's plaster every day so that the young man wouldn't collapse with all the things he was forgetting due to his amnesia, which was made even worse by the presence of the virus. The woman then repeated this same process for several years, but one day, things began to go wrong, as the young man no longer recognized his girlfriend. Tired of the life of lies she's been through to protect Ethan, Emma says she can't do it anymore, and her boyfriend says the same. Devastated, the young man walks to the top of the hill, and after looking at the house he has lived in for the last few years, he decides to put an end to everything. However, Ethan is still alive, and after disarming him, Emma orders him to stop immediately. Soon after, the woman realizes that she doesn't want to be apart from her great love, and decides that she will infect herself too. So Emma takes Ethan to her barn, where part of her body is devoured by her zombie boyfriend. While being infected by the young man, the woman remembers all the happy times she had with him, from the time when the world had not yet been destroyed by the virus of nature. With both transformed, the couple unite on their farm once again so that they can begin their lives as true immortal zombies and spend the rest of eternity together. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.